I used to think city meant glass towers and traffic lights and people who didn't know each other's names. I was wrong. A city is water you can trust, power you can count on, food that arrives on a schedule, rules that don't change every time somebody gets scared, and people who do their jobs even when nobody is watching. When everything fell apart, we built all of that from scrap and discipline in a place most people drove past without looking twice. We built it at the old Bethlehem steel site on the south side of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where the rusted skeletons of blast furnaces still stand like a dead forest of iron. Steel stacks, the old rail spurs, the wide concrete paths where machines once sat, the Lehigh River on one side, the hill neighborhoods on the other, and enough heavy fencing, gates, and hard surfaces to give us a head start. I didn't plan to be part of it. I didn't plan to be alive. I definitely didn't plan to be the person writing down how we did it, for someone else to hear later like it's a campfire story. But that's what I became. The guy who remembered details, who logged what worked, who kept lists, who measured fuel and chlorine and ammunition like it was money. My name is Mason Keller. Before the outbreak, I was a facilities technician for a regional property management company. HVAC, electrical, water pumps, backups, inspections. I knew what it meant when a breaker smelled hot. I knew why a generator fails at the worst possible time. I knew how quickly people become desperate when toilets stop flushing. That knowledge turned out to be more valuable than anything I carried in my hands. The first day didn't feel like the end of the world. It felt like a bad week starting. I was in Allentown, just off Airport Road, working a rooftop unit on a strip mall. The kind of job where you smell fast food grease through the intake vent and hear trucks downshift on Route 22. My phone kept buzzing with alerts. First, the kind you ignore, then the kind you don't. A hospital in Philly overwhelmed. A violent incident at a transit station. A contagious event at a nursing facility. The same shaky videos reposted with different captions. People arguing and comments like arguing could change what the footage showed. I climbed down from the roof, sweaty and annoyed, and found the parking lot wrong in a way I couldn't describe. It wasn't empty, it wasn't packed, it was jagged. Cars stopped at odd angles. Doors open, a shopping cart, abandoned in the middle like someone let go in a hurry. Inside the mall, a woman at the pharmacy counter was shouting that her father needed insulin. The pharmacist's hands were shaking so badly he dropped a bottle and it shattered on the tile. A kid was crying. Somewhere deeper in the building, a security alarm was chirping, not blaring, like it didn't know whether it was supposed to be panicked yet. Then someone ran past me, blood on his shirt. Not a trickle, not a scratch. A whole front soaked. He slammed into the glass doors and bounced back, tried again, and got out. Behind him, a cluster of people moved fast and wrong, like a crowd pushing through a doorway, but there was no doorway. They were focused on him like a pack. A woman screamed a word that made everyone freeze. Bitten. That was the moment when the normal rules cracked. People went from watching to moving, and when you have 50 people moving with fear in their chest, you get stampedes. I didn't try to be a hero. I didn't try to film. I did the one thing my job trained into me. I backed away, eyes scanning for exits, hands already counting what I had. Keys, phone, wallet, a pocket flashlight, a small folding knife I used for packaging and zip ties. My tool bag sitting by the service corridor door. Not a weapon bag, a work bag, but it had two things that mattered: a heavy screwdriver and a pair of work gloves. I got to my van and locked the doors with shaking fingers. I watched through the windshield as people sprinted across the lot, and I tried to make sense of it like it was a mechanical failure. It wasn't mechanical. It was human, and it was spreading. The roads clogged within an hour. Everyone decided to leave at the same time, and nobody agreed on where safe was. Police cars screamed past, then stopped screaming. News anchors on radio stations kept talking like if they said the right sentence, the situation would become organized. I drove east on back roads with the radio low. I saw a school bus pulled sideways across an intersection, doors open. I saw a man pushing a stroller with no baby in it. I saw a line of cars at a gas station stretching into the street, and then I saw a fight break out over a pump, and that's when I turned away. My apartment was in Bethlehem, not far from Main Street, close enough to hear the music from festivals in the summer. I made it there in under an hour, a drive that usually took 30 minutes. I carried my tool bag upstairs, deadbolted my door, and listened. The city sounded like a storm moving in. Sirens, shouts, helicopters. Then, in the gaps, something else. Short bursts that could have been fireworks if it wasn't the wrong time of year. I called my sister in Redding. No answer. I called my mom in Scranton. Straight to voicemail. I texted coworkers. I got a few replies, all of them confused and afraid. Then, late afternoon, a message came from a number I didn't recognize. You have skills. We need skills. Steel stacks. Sunset. South Lot. Come quiet. I stared at it like it was a scam. Then another. Ask for Dr. N. Patel. I knew that name. Everyone in the Lehigh Valley knew that name if they'd ever been to St. Luke's or heard a medical fundraiser on the radio. Dr. Neil Patel, emergency medicine. The type who showed up during snowstorms and hurricanes, the type who volunteered at events. If someone was using his name, either it was real or it was desperate. By 6 p.m., the power flickered. By 6:30, the internet went out. The moment the lights blinked, I understood what was coming next because buildings are honest. They tell you what's wrong if you know how to listen. A grid under stress. Substations tripping. Generators not maintained. Fuel deliveries canceled. It would cascade. If I stayed in my apartment, I'd be trapped in a concrete box above a street full of panic. I'd have no water pressure within a day if pumps lost power. I'd have no way to get out if the stairwell filled with smoke or people. So I did what every sensible person did that first night. I packed like I might not come back. Tool bag, backpack, water bottles filled from the tap, canned food, a first aid kit, warm layers, a small battery radio, a headlamp, a pocket full of spare batteries. I also did something I'm not proud of, but I'm not going to lie about it. I went to my neighbor's door. His name was Frank Wozniak, retired, ex-railroad. He always kept his curtains closed and his porch light on. He'd once told me with a grin that he didn't trust banks and didn't trust anyone who didn't own a screwdriver. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Still nothing. I listened. Silence. I went back to my apartment, grabbed my heavy screwdriver, and came back. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't smash anything. I slipped the screwdriver into the latch cap and leaned with a controlled pressure. The deadbolt held. The latch gave. Inside, Frank was on the living room floor, pale, eyes open. No movement. A pill bottle nearby, a glass tipped over. The room smelled like stale coffee and something metallic. I said his name even though I already knew. Then I saw the open gun safe in the corner. Frank had a shotgun and a small stack of boxes and a note on the coffee table that said, in shaky handwriting, "Sorry, don't let them eat me." I stood there for a full minute, feeling like the floor had tilted. I didn't want his things. I didn't want his life. But I also didn't want to die because I pretended the world was still polite. I took the shotgun. I took the ammunition. I took the note and left it on the table where it belonged. I locked his door behind me as if that meant something. By the time I stepped outside again, Bethlehem was a different city. Streetlights were out in patches. People moved in groups. Someone screamed in the distance and nobody ran toward it. I drove to steel stacks with my headlights off whenever I could, rolling slow through intersections, listening. When I pulled into the south lot, I saw silhouettes and low red light from covered flashlights. A voice called out, "Stop there! Hands where I can see them." I lifted my hands, open, and kept my voice calm. "Mason Keller, I got messages. I'm here for Dr. Patel." A pause, then someone stepped into view. Tall woman, hair in a tight bun, wearing a St. Luke's jacket under a plate carrier that looked like it came from somewhere official. She held a rifle with a mounted light, finger off the trigger like she'd been trained. "You're the HVAC guy?" she asked. "I'm the facilities guy." She nodded once. "I'm Dr. Patel." Her eyes were tired in a way that didn't match the time of day. She looked like she'd been awake for a year. Behind her were maybe 20 people, some in work uniforms, some in hoodies, one guy in a hard hat, one older man with a hunting vest, a couple of teenagers with backpacks, one woman holding a baby close and rocking without realizing. And in the center of them, a man in a Bethlehem police jacket with the name patch ripped off, carrying a radio and a pistol, and the look of someone trying not to lose control. "This is Officer Luis Ramirez," Patel said. "He's keeping the perimeter with what we've got." Ramirez studied me and my tool bag. "You armed?" "I have a shotgun," I said honestly. "It's not mine." Ramirez exhaled through his nose like he'd already heard 100 confessions tonight. "You know how to use it?" "I know the basics," I said. "Safety on. Keep it pointed down. Don't do anything dumb." "That's more than half the people out there," he said. He shifted his attention. "We're building something here. Not a camp, not a hideout. Something that lasts. You want in, you work. We don't carry passengers." "I work," I said. Patel stepped closer. "What can you do?" I looked past her at the massive, dark structures of the former steel plant. "If we can find a generator and fuel, I can keep it running. I can set up water pumping, filtration, basic power distribution. I can make buildings safer." "Good," she said, like she'd already decided. "Because we're out of time." That first night at Steel Stacks was chaos, with a thin layer of discipline spread over it like paint. We had a goal that sounded simple. Make a secure perimeter, make a safe sleeping area, establish a plan for morning. But every piece of that required decisions, and every decision required authority, and authority was a fragile thing when the world had just proven it could disappear. Ramirez took the lead on security by default. He had the radio. He had the stance. People listened to him because he sounded like someone who believed in consequences. He split us into teams: perimeter, scavenging, medical, shelter. Patel ran triage in a back room of one of the arts buildings, using donated supplies and a few bags she'd pulled from her hospital before it became impossible. She didn't ask permission. She just started treating injuries, checking fevers, cleaning wounds, and making quiet judgments about who needed isolation. And me. Ramirez walked me over to a maintenance shed where a janitor named Aisha Balak was sitting on a folding chair, clutching a ring of keys like it was a weapon. "This is Aisha," Ramirez said. "She worked facilities here. She knows the site." Aisha looked up, eyes wary. "You're the power guy?" "I'm the power guy, if there's power to be found." She gave a short laugh with no humor. "There's a diesel generator for event days. It's not huge, but it can run lights, some outlets, maybe a small pump. Fuel tanks underground, if it's not empty." My heart did that weird thing, where hope and fear hit at the same time. "Show me." We walked the site with headlamps pointed down, staying off open paths. The industrial landscape was eerie in the dark. Massive steel beams and pipes, ghostly outlines of conveyors. It felt like being inside a machine that had died. We found the generator enclosure near a service access, locked with a heavy padlock. Aisha had the key. She opened it like she'd done it 100 times for festivals and concerts. Inside was a diesel generator set with a control panel, battery disconnect, and a transfer switch. Commercial grade. The kind that could run for days if it had fuel and oil. I ran my hands over it like I was greeting an old friend. "Okay," I said. "We need to check oil, coolant, battery, and fuel." Aisha pointed at a metal hatch set into the concrete nearby. "Fuel tank is under there." We opened it. The smell of diesel hit me immediately. That was a good sign. I dropped the dipstick into the tank and pulled it up. Wet, dark, but present. "Not full," I said, "but not empty." I checked the generator's oil and coolant. I checked the air filter. I checked the battery voltage with a meter from my bag. The battery was low, but not dead. "If we start it now, we can charge the battery and run minimal load," I said. "But we need rules. No space heaters, no hair dryers, no nonsense, lights, radio charging, maybe a small refrigerator if we find one." Aisha nodded. "People are going to fight over outlets." "Then Ramirez sets a schedule," I said. "Or you do, whoever has the backbone." We got it running at around midnight. The engine coughed, then settled into a steady rumble that felt like civilization itself returning in a small, stubborn way. A few lights flickered on in the building. People gathered like moths, faces glowing in the weak brightness. Someone started to cry, quietly. Not sobbing, relief crying. Ramirez immediately used the power to run a small area of light near the main entrance. He posted 2 sentries there and made it clear. No one goes outside alone. No one opens gates without clearance. No one fires a gun unless it's life or death. When someone complained, he stared them down until they looked away. Patel took me aside after the generator stabilized. "We need water," she said, blunt. "People can go hungry longer than they can go without water. Dehydration makes everything worse." "Where's the nearest reliable source?" I asked. Aisha answered from behind her. "Lehigh River, but you can't drink it like that." Patel's gaze didn't move. "Can you make it drinkable?" I thought through options. We can boil, but that burns fuel. We can filter. Ceramic, carbon, but we need filters. We can disinfect with chlorine if we find pool chemicals. We can set up sedimentation and use bleach dosing, but it has to be precise. "Do it," Patel said. "However you do it, just do it safely." That was my first real job for the city we hadn't built yet. make water. The morning brought sunlight and the reality of how alone we were. The radio gave us fragments. Emergency broadcasts repeating instructions that no longer matched the world. Shelter in place. Await further guidance. Do not travel. The voices were calm, but the content kept looping like a recorded message because it was. Sound networks were intermittent. Texts sometimes went through, then didn't. Social media was a graveyard of rumors and shaky videos. We took stock of who we had. 32 people by breakfast, including 3 kids and 1 baby. By noon, after a few cautious scouts returned with more survivors, we were 47. People arrived with the same story. They'd tried to stay home, then the noise started. Then someone got sick. Then the neighborhood became unsafe. They'd walked, driven, or run until they found the lit building and the guards and the feeling that maybe somebody here had a plan. Plans are contagious, so is fear. We needed the first one to spread faster. Ramirez gathered everyone in the largest open room we could secure. He didn't stand on a stage. He stood on the floor like everyone else. "I'm not your mayor," he said. "I'm not your boss. But I am telling you how this works if you want to stay. We are not a charity. We are not a free hotel. We are a team. Everyone contributes. Everyone follows rules." He pointed to the doors. "You don't like it, you leave now. No hard feelings. But if you stay, you don't steal, you don't fight, you don't endanger the group. You don't open gates, you don't wander." A few people shifted like they wanted to argue, but Patel stepped forward. "We are also going to do this medically," she said. "That means hygiene, basic screening, and isolation when needed. If you hide symptoms, you put all of us at risk. If you get injured, you report it." Someone asked the question everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to say. What happens if someone gets bitten? Silence. The kind that makes you hear the generator through the walls. Patel spoke carefully. "We prevent it. That's the priority. But if it happens, we isolate immediately. We do not pretend it's fine." She didn't say anything graphic. She didn't have to. We'd all seen enough. Ramirez looked at me then like he wanted the practical view. "Water?" he asked. I cleared my throat. "We have a river. We have buckets. That's not enough. Today we build a water line. We build a treatment station. We build a schedule for collection and distribution. If we do it right, nobody drinks untreated water. If we do it wrong, sickness wipes us out without a single infected person touching us." That got their attention. People like the idea of danger they can see. They hate the idea of danger they can't. So I explained it like I'd explain a building system to a tenant. Clear, plain, no jargon. We're going to pump river water into holding containers. Let the heavy stuff settle. Run it through filtration. Cloth it first, then better when we find it. Then disinfect with measured bleach. Then store it in clean containers. No dipping dirty cups into clean water. No exceptions. Aisha backed me up. "We can build it. We have materials here. Drums, hoses, fittings. We just need labor." That was the moment the group shifted. Not everyone, but enough. People started to understand we weren't just hiding. We were building. That's how the city started. Not with speeches, with plumbing. The first week was nothing but work and risk, with short sleep and constant tension. We sent out scavenging teams in daylight with strict rules. 3 minimum, no hero moves, return before dusk. Ramirez always put someone steady on each team, someone with a calm voice and the ability to say no. Our first major run was to a nearby industrial supply yard and a hardware store off Stefco Boulevard. We moved in 2 vehicles, my van and a battered pickup driven by a guy named Calvin Ross, former warehouse supervisor, broad shoulders, quick mind. Calvin didn't talk much, but when he did, he was always counting. How many pallets, how many gallons, how many trips? We came back with rolls of heavy plastic, boxes of pipe fittings, hose clamps, 5-gallon buckets, bleach, gloves, respirator masks, and a pallet of bottled water that felt like we'd found gold. We also came back with 2 new people. One was a thin man in a reflective vest, hands raised when we spotted him behind a loading dock. His name was Jorge Medina, and he had been a city water operator in Easton. He'd been trying to get to his plant when he realized it was already lost, and then he started walking. When he heard we were building a water treatment station, his eyes sharpened like he'd been asleep and someone had finally said his name. "You're dosing bleach?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "How are you measuring?" "By volume," I said. "We're being careful." He nodded slowly. "Careful isn't the same as correct. I can help you do correct." The second was a woman with a backpack and a hard case. She wore scrubs under a heavy jacket. Her name was Sienna Park, a paramedic from EMS station in Allentown. She'd been separated from her unit during the first surge, and she'd been moving alone since. Patel pulled her into a hug like she was family. "Thank you for coming," she said, and it sounded like she meant thank you for surviving. Sienna looked around the site and said, "This is organized." "Trying to be," Patel replied. Sienna's gaze landed on the generator and the extension cords. "You're going to need more power." "I know," I said. She looked at me. "Then you need fuel security." Those 3 words became a theme. Fuel security, water security, food security, perimeter security. City words. We built the water system in stages because nothing happens all at once when you have limited tools. Stage 1 was brute force. River water carried in sealed containers to reduce contamination, then treated by boiling and bleach dosing. It was inefficient and fuel-hungry, but it bought time. Stage 2 was smarter. Jorge helped us build a settling and filtration station using food-grade drums and layered filters, coarse cloth, then finer cloth, then improvised carbon media from activated charcoal we found in aquarium supplies, and later in bulk from a pool maintenance shop. We didn't pretend it was perfect. We tested what we could with simple kits, watched for turbidity, tracked taste and smell, and stuck to conservative disinfection. Stage 3 was the real leap. A small pump running off generator power, pulling river water through a pre-filter into a holding tank, then into treatment, then into a distribution header with spigots. People lined up with containers like it was a relief camp, but the difference was we made the relief ourselves. We posted rules on plywood. Clean containers only. Wash hands. Do not touch spigots with dirty hands. Ramirez enforced those rules like they were law. We assigned jobs. That changed everything. Patel ran medical and sanitation. She made hand-washing stations from buckets with spigots. She set up a designated latrine system away from living areas. She insisted on cleaning schedules. Some people rolled their eyes until they saw how fast minor infections spread in close quarters. Calvin ran inventory. He created a ledger on paper. Fuel in, fuel out, food intake, tools. He marked everything with tape and Sharpie. He was the kind of guy who would still be counting boxes during a tornado. Aisha ran site access and construction. She knew where the maintenance tunnels went, which doors could be barred, which gates could be reinforced. She found stored barricade materials meant for events and repurposed them into perimeter control. Jorge became my partner on water, and then he became the person everyone came to when they had questions like, "Is this safe?" He didn't sugarcoat. He explained. People listened because he sounded like someone who'd done this before, and he had. Sienna trained a response team. Not a militia, a response team. She taught people how to move in pairs, how to use radios, how to drag someone without hurting them, how to treat shock, how to stop bleeding. She insisted we call things what they were, injuries, not small problems. Ramirez organized security shifts. He also made a rule that saved us more than once. Nobody carried a weapon unless they were on duty or going out on a run. Not because he didn't trust us, because he didn't trust fear. As for me, I did power, water, and whatever else nobody wanted. I learned quickly that being the systems guy meant people blamed you when systems failed. The first time the generator tripped offline, it happened at 2 a.m. The lights died. The room went dark. Someone screamed. The baby cried. People started shouting at each other because shouting was easier than thinking. I ran to the generator enclosure with Aisha and one security guard. Shotgun slung, but useless, because this wasn't a shooting problem. It was a mechanical problem. The best kind, in a way, because mechanical problems have reasons. The generator had overheated. Coolant level low, a hose clamp loose. I tightened it, refilled coolant with what we had, bled the air, restarted the unit. It came back to life with a rumble that felt like a heartbeat returning. When we went back inside, Calvin was waiting. "Fuel consumption spiked today," he said. "Because more people plugged in," I said. "And because someone ran a space heater," he said. Aisha's face hardened. "We don't have space heaters." Calvin held up a corded heater like it was evidence in a courtroom. "We did." Ramirez walked over, took it without speaking, and smashed it against the concrete outside. No yelling, no speech, just consequences. After that, nobody tried it again. The second week, we got hit by reality in a different form. Noise draws attention. Steel stacks is built for crowds. That's what it used to be. The very features that made it good for events, open plazas, wide approaches, made it risky now. Sound traveled. Light traveled. Movement traveled. The first time we saw a real wave was on a gray morning, light rain making everything slick. A lookout posted on the upper level of an old stair tower called down, voice tight. Movement on the south road, a lot, like a lot. Ramirez and I climbed up with binoculars. Down the road, coming from the direction of Route 412, was a slow river of figures. Dozens at first, then more, drawn by something, maybe sound, maybe instinct. They moved in that uneven way I'd learned to recognize. Not purposeful, but persistent. Sienna joined us, eyes narrowing. "They're not sprinting," she said. "No," Ramirez replied, "but they don't need to." Jorge looked like he might be sick. If they get to the fence... We had fences, yes, but fences are only as strong as their weakest link. Steel stacks had sections of chain link, sections of ornamental fencing, and some areas where the boundary was more suggestion than barrier. Ramirez's jaw tightened. "We're not going to shoot unless we have to. Gunfire will bring more." So what do we do?" Aisha asked. I looked at the layout. We redirect. We used construction barriers, pallets, and whatever heavy objects we could move quickly. We created a funnel that guided the wave away from our main gate and toward a dead-end section that led to a concrete wall and a steep slope down toward the riverbank. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a plan that didn't involve a firefight. We also did something else. We got quiet. We shut off non-essential lights. We told people to stay inside. We stopped all hammering and loud work. We turned the generator down to minimal load and used only covered lights. The wave reached the outer fence line and pressed against it like water against a dam. Hands grabbed mesh. Bodies leaned. It held, mostly. Then, like a bad physics demonstration, the pressure shifted. A section of fence bowed. One post creaked. Ramirez looked at me. "If that goes—" "It can't," I said, already moving. "Aisha!" Aisha was already ahead of me with a team carrying heavy steel cable and ratchet straps. She had the instincts of someone who'd done emergency repairs during storms. You don't stare, you act. We reinforced the fence with tension straps anchored to concrete blocks. We used scrap steel beams as braces. We worked fast, hands slipping on wet metal, breath visible in the cold. The fence held. The wave pushed for another hour, then drifted, drawn away by something else. Maybe a sound in the distance. Maybe nothing at all. They wandered off like a storm moving past. When it was over, nobody cheered. We just stood there with rain on our faces and understood something important. We could be overwhelmed at any time. That's when city stopped being an inspiring idea and became a necessity. If we were going to survive long term, we needed more than one fence line. We needed depth. We needed zones. We needed structure. We needed to stop thinking like refugees and start thinking like builders. The idea that turned our camp into a city came from the least dramatic person among us. Her name was Maribel Santos. She was a civil engineer for PennDOT. Quiet, observant, always taking mental measurements. She walked the site one afternoon with a piece of chalk and started marking the ground. Lines, arrows, notes. Ramirez approached her like he was about to tell her to stop drawing on public property in the middle of the end of the world. "What are you doing?" he asked. Maribel didn't look up. "Making us less stupid." He blinked. "Explain." She straightened and pointed. "We're using this whole site like it's one big room. That's wrong. We need compartments. If the outer fence fails, we need an inner fence. If the inner fails, we need a final line around critical assets: medical, water, fuel, sleeping." She tapped the chalk lines. "We need to control movement. We need lanes. We need gates inside gates. We need a place where new arrivals get processed before they walk into our sleeping area. We need a quarantine space that's separate. We need a waste area downwind. We need a fire break. We need a watch rotation that covers blind spots." She looked at Ramirez. "We are building a small city. Cities have layout. Right now, we have a crowd." Ramirez's face softened slightly. "Can you design it?" "I can," she said, "but I need labor and materials." Calvan stepped in from behind him like he'd been summoned by the word materials. "I can get you materials," he said, "if you tell me exactly what." Maribel nodded. "Then we stop reacting and start planning." That week, we reorganized. We built 3 rings. Ring 1, the outer perimeter. Fences, barricades, controlled vehicle access. Ring 2. The inner perimeter. Portable fencing, welded panels, shipping containers positioned to block straight approaches, gates we could close fast. Ring 3. The core. Water treatment, generator and fuel. Medical. Sleeping quarters, storage, and a small command space where decisions were recorded and posted. We didn't call it command at first, we called it the board, because nobody wanted to admit we were building government. But that's what it was. A board with names, shifts, rules, ration schedules, and maps. We created a front desk for new arrivals. 2 people always present with radios, masks, gloves, and a checklist Patel wrote. Name, symptoms, injuries, skills, family, where they came from, who they were with, when they last ate, when they last drank. We created a quarantine zone, an old side building with separate entrance, separate latrine buckets, separate water supply. It wasn't comfortable, it was necessary. We created a sanitation team. People hated that job until Patel explained what happens when sanitation fails. Then they hated it but did it anyway. We created a night watch with a rule. 2 on duty, 1 watching the watcher. Fatigue makes mistakes. Mistakes get people killed. We also created something that changed the tone completely. A market. Not money, not cash, but trade. Calvin didn't like it at first. We need centralized distribution, he argued. Maribel countered. We need morale. We need people to feel like they have agency. Patel surprised both of them by agreeing with Maribel. If people can trade labor for extras, coffee, a clean shirt, a book, they'll keep going. If everything is just ration lines, they'll break. So we set up a controlled trading table once a week. People could barter small personal items, services, skills, haircuts, repair work, cooking, sewing, teaching kids. It sounds silly until you realize those things are what make people human. We built a city because we rebuilt the small parts of life that panic destroys first. The day we almost lost it all was the day we tried to be ambitious. We needed more power. The event generator was good, but it wasn't enough for growth. We were keeping lights minimal, refrigeration limited, and water pumping constrained. If we wanted to support a larger population, we needed a bigger generator, or multiple, and we needed a real fuel plan. There was a municipal public works yard in Bethlehem Township that likely had equipment, diesel tanks, backup generators, maybe even portable light towers. It was risky, but the reward could change everything. Ramirez planned the run like it was an operation. Sienna insisted on medical prep. Calvin insisted on inventory goals. Maribel insisted on a route plan and fallback points. We went with 2 vehicles and 8 people. Me, because I could assess equipment. Aisha, because she knew how to get into locked places without making a mess. Calvin, because he could load and track. Ramirez and 2 security volunteers, Deshaun Miller, a former security guard from a casino, and Tom Baird, an older hunter who'd been steady and quiet. Sienna, because she wouldn't let us go without medical. And Jorge, because he refused to let us bring back a generator without also bringing back treatment chemicals if we found them. We moved early, just after dawn, when streets were quiet and visibility was good. The township yard looked deserted at first. Chain-link fence, gate closed, signs posted like the world still cared about hours of operation. Beyond the fence were parked trucks, salt piles, equipment sheds. Aisha cut the lock cleanly with bolt cutters and we slipped in. We found what we hoped for, A trailer-mounted diesel generator, larger than ours, with a weatherproof enclosure. We found spare fuel cans. We found pallets of road salt and maintenance supplies. We found a storage cabinet with pool test strips and chlorine products used for facility maintenance. We were loading when the first scream came from outside the fence. Not a human scream. Something else. A sound of frustration. Ramirez raised a hand and we froze. Then we heard feet. Not one set. Many. Deshaun climbed onto the generator trailer and looked over the fence. His voice dropped. We got company. I climbed up beside him and looked. A crowd was moving down the road toward us, drawn by the noise of our loading. Metal clanks, voices, the engine of the truck idling. They weren't sprinting, but there were enough that enough didn't matter. Back out now, Ramirez said. We take what's loaded and go. We moved fast. Calvin did not argue. He just threw straps and tightened them like his life depended on it. Because it did. That's when we heard a different sound. An engine revving hard. A small sedan came around the corner, weaving, headlights on, horn blaring. It slammed into the fence gate and bounced off. Then tried again. Metal screeching. Inside the car were two people. They were trying to get in, trying to escape what was behind them. They didn't see us. They didn't see the danger of opening a gate that kept the crowd out. "Stop!" Ramirez shouted, running toward the gate. The driver saw him at the last second and hit the brakes, tires squealing. The car skidded sideways, door slamming open. A woman stumbled out, crying, hair wild. "Please," she yelled. "Please, let us in. They're coming." "They're already here," Ramirez snapped, grabbing her arm and pulling her away from the gate. "You open this. You open it for all of them." A man climbed out of the passenger side and raised a pistol with shaking hands. "You don't understand," he said. "My kid's in the back." Sienna moved forward, hands up, voice calm like she was talking to a patient on a bad day. "We understand. We do. Lower the gun. We will help you, but we cannot open the gate." The crowd reached the sedan, hands hit the trunk, bodies pressed. The horn blared continuously because someone's arm was pinned on it. Panic makes people do dumb things. The man with the pistol turned, aimed at the crowd, and fired. The shots echoed down the road like a dinner bell. The crowd surged. Deshaun swore. Tom raised his rifle, but Ramirez shouted, "No! Get the truck moving!" Calvin jumped in the pickup and started it. I ran to my van, heart hammering so hard my vision tunneled. Sienna was at the sedan now, reaching into the back. I saw a small face, maybe 7 years old, wide eyes, frozen. The seatbelt was stuck. Sienna cut it with a knife in one quick motion and pulled the child out. She shoved the kid toward Jorge, who grabbed them and ran. The crowd hit the sedan like a wave hitting a rock. The woman screamed and tried to run back for the car, but Ramirez held her, yanking her away. "Move," he ordered. "Now!" We got out through the gate we'd cut, slipping past just as the crowd reached the fence line. Hands grabbed mesh. Bodies slammed into posts. The sound was horrible. Not graphic, just relentless. We drove hard back toward steel stacks, engines loud, nerves raw. Behind us, the horn from the sedan faded into the distance, replaced by the roar of a crowd. We didn't talk for the first 10 minutes. We just drove. When we finally slowed near our outer perimeter, Calvin spoke in a flat voice. "We got the generator." Jorge replied, equally flat. "And we got more attention than we wanted." Ramirez looked at Sienna. "Everyone okay?" Sienna nodded, breathing hard. "Kids alive. Parents alive. For now." Ramirez stared ahead. "Then we didn't fail." But his voice didn't sound convinced. "That run taught us 2 lessons we wrote on the board that night. Noise is a weapon. People will accidentally destroy you while begging you to save them. We didn't stop helping people, but we stopped pretending. Help was simple. With the bigger generator, the city changed shape. We could run refrigeration reliably. That meant we could store more food safely, preserve medicine longer, and reduce waste. We could run water pumps longer and more consistently. We could run lights in critical areas without draining the system. But it also meant we became brighter at night. So we built light discipline, blackout curtains, shielded lights, minimal exterior illumination, motion sensors only in controlled zones. We used red lights in some areas to preserve night vision and reduce visibility at distance. Maribel pushed for something else. Agriculture. "Scavenging will end," she said at a board meeting. "We are eating the valley. Eventually, the shelves are empty and the warehouses are looted and the fields are unattended." A man named Hank Dorsey, former landscaper, raised his hand. "We can grow food here," he said. "Not enough for everyone, but enough to matter. Raised beds, containers, rooftop planters, use compost." Patel frowned. "Compost can bring pests." Hank nodded. "Then we do it right, controlled, covered, away from sleeping." Jorge added, "We need water allocation if we're growing." Calvin sighed, like someone had just asked him to track 1,000,000 new variables. "Fine, but we measure. We don't guess." So we built gardens in the least glamorous places, in old concrete planters, in cut-open IBC totes, in repurposed barrels. We scavenged soil, seed packets, fertilizer. We learned quickly that you can't grow tomatoes on hope alone. We also made contact with another group. It happened because of radios. One of our new arrivals, a teenager named Eli Ward, had been a ham radio kid before the outbreak. One of those quiet teens who suddenly become important when technology collapses. He rigged an antenna on a high point of the old industrial structure and started scanning. One evening, he called Ramirez over, voice excited. "I got someone," he whispered. "Not a broadcast, a person." Ramirez leaned in. "This is SteelStack's group. Identify." A crackly voice replied. "This is River Station, Easton area. We've got a compound by the river. We heard you have power." Ramirez looked at me and Calvin and Patel in quick succession. "How many?" "About 60, the voice said. "We've got water access and some solar. We're low on meds, low on fuel." Patel's eyes sharpened. "Ask about medical status?" Ramirez did. The voice answered cautiously. They had injuries, yes. Illness, yes. No major outbreak inside their group. Calvin leaned closer. "Ask about food." They had some. They'd been fishing and scavenging. They had a small garden. Maribel's expression turned thoughtful. "Trade." That single word, trade, was how the region began to rebuild. We arranged a meeting at a neutral location on the Delaware and Lehigh Trail, a place with open sight lines and multiple exits. We went with strict security. They did too. The leader of River Station was a woman named Tasha Green, former school vice principal. She had the same tired eyes Patel had, the same "I'm doing this because nobody else is" energy Ramirez carried. We traded. Antibiotics and medical supplies for fuel and dried food. Water treatment chemicals for fishing gear. Knowledge for knowledge. Then we did the most important thing. We agreed on rules for future contact. No surprise visits. No approaching gates without radio confirmation. No bringing strangers without prior notice. Quarantine protocols for anyone moving between groups. We weren't just building our city, we were building a network. And networks become countries if you give them time. The crisis that truly tested our city wasn't an attack from outside. It was conflict from within. It started, as these things always do, with a rumor. Someone said Calvin was hiding extra food. Someone said Ramirez was keeping ammo for his people. Someone said Patel was giving medicine to her friends. Someone said Aisha had keys to everything and could lock anyone out. Most of it was nonsense, but in a scared population, nonsense spreads because it gives anger a target. The real issue was simpler. We had grown to over 100 people, and not everyone worked equally hard. Not everyone accepted rules equally well. Some people still thought like individuals, not citizens. A man named Corey Lance became the voice of that resentment. He was charismatic in a cheap way, good at making jokes, good at turning frustration into a crowd. At first, he complained about rations. "Why does a guard get more calories than a guy cleaning toilets?" he asked loudly near the water line. "Because the guard stands 12 hours watching the fence," someone snapped back. Corey shrugged. "We all stand 12 hours doing something. Or we should." Then he complained about the board. "Who elected them?" he said. "Ramirez, Patel, Calvin. It's a club." Patel heard about it and, to my surprise, went to him directly. I was there because she asked me to witness, like she understood that transparency mattered. Corey stood with arms crossed, smirking. "Doctor," he said, emphasizing it like it was a joke. Patel didn't rise to it. "What do you want?" she asked. Corey spread his hands. "Fairness." Patel nodded. "Define it." Corey blinked. People like slogans more than definitions. "I want votes," he said finally. "I want decisions made by everyone." Maribel stepped up. "That sounds nice," she said, calm. "But 100 people can't vote on every decision. You'll die while you count hands. You need a structure." Corey's smile tightened. "Structure is just another word for control." Ramirez appeared at the edge of the group, silent. People made space without thinking. Patel kept her voice even. "We post decisions. We post inventories. We post ration schedules. You can see the numbers." Corey's eyes flicked away. "Numbers can be faked?" Calvin, who rarely showed emotion, stepped forward holding his ledger. "Then audit me," he said. "Right now, in front of everyone. You think I'm hiding food? Let's count." Corey hesitated, because auditing meant work. It meant reality. It meant risking being proven wrong. A few people murmured. Some looked at Corey like they wanted him to back it up. Patel seized the moment. "Here's the deal," she said. "You want more representation? Good. We create committees. Sanitation committee, food committee, security committee, maintenance committee. People rotate in. But the rules stay until someone proposes a better one and proves it works." Maribel nodded. "That's how cities work." Corey opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he didn't want to serve. He wanted to complain. But the crowd had heard Patel's offer, and it was reasonable. And when people hear reason in a world that has gone irrational, they cling to it. Corey lost momentum that day. He didn't stop being a problem, though. He just changed tactics. A week later, Fuel went missing. Not a huge amount. Enough to matter. Enough to cause panic. Calvin discovered it during his morning check, face pale. "Someone siphoned from the reserve," he said, voice tight. Ramirez's eyes went cold. "How?" I checked the tank access. The lock had been forced, but not crudely. Someone had done it with tools. Aisha's jaw clenched. "That wasn't random," she said. Patel looked around at the crowd gathering. "If fuel disappears, power disappears. Refrigeration disappears. Water pumping disappears. That's not theft, that's sabotage." That word, sabotage, made people quiet. Ramirez didn't accuse anyone publicly. He did something smarter. He changed the system. He moved fuel access to a controlled point with double locks and posted guards. He instituted a sign-out log for any fuel use, even for small tasks. He assigned two-person integrity rules. Nobody accessed critical supplies alone. And he set a trap. We quietly marked fuel cans with an invisible indicator. Simple stuff, not magic, just a method of tracking that would show if someone handled specific containers. We also watched who started acting nervous. Corey started acting nervous. Then, 2 nights later, Deshaun caught Corey near the storage area with small siphon hose and a backpack. Corey didn't run. He tried to talk. "You don't get it," he said quickly. I was going to trade it for antibiotics for my cousin. He's sick." Patel arrived, furious. "Your cousin is not in quarantine," she said. "Your cousin doesn't exist." Corey's face flashed with anger. "You don't care about anyone but your own." Ramirez stepped in front of him. "You stole from the city," he said. "You endangered the city." Corey's eyes darted, looking for allies. He didn't find many. The question was what to do with him. Some wanted to throw him out, immediately. Some wanted to lock him up. We didn't have a jail. We had rooms with doors. Patel argued. If we exile him, he might come back with a crowd, or he might do something stupid nearby that draws attention. Maribel said, "If we keep him, we create a precedent that you can sabotage and stay." Ramirez looked at me. Systems perspective. I hated that he asked me, because I knew whatever I said would sit in someone's memory forever. "Cities can't survive without consequences," I said. "But consequences have to be controlled, not revenge, not violence, controlled." Ramirez nodded slowly. In the end, we did something harsh but structured. We put Corey on labor duty under supervision for 30 days. Sanitation, perimeter reinforcement, heavy work. No weapons, no access to storage. He slept in a separated area. He ate basic rations. He was watched. If he refused, exile. Corey cursed. He complained. He tried to rally people. But something interesting happened. Working under supervision, doing hard labor, seeing the systems up close, he began to understand how thin the margin was, how close we lived to failure every day. I'm not saying he became a good person. I'm saying the city forced him to face reality. And reality is a powerful teacher. By month 3, Steel Stacks wasn't a camp. It had streets, painted lines on concrete marking walking lanes and cart lanes. It had neighborhoods, sleeping quarters, organized by family groups, singles, medical staff, security, maintenance. It had a school corner. Eli and 2 former teachers running lessons for kids using scavenged books and printed worksheets, because kids needed a future even if the world didn't deserve one. It had a clinic, Patel and Sienna, with a clean room, a supply cabinet, and enough protocols to prevent disaster. It had an engine room, our generator enclosure and fuel reserve, guarded like it was the heart of a living thing. It had a water plant, my pride and my worry, with Jorge watching dosing like a hawk. It had a council, Ramirez, Patel, Calvin, Aisha, Maribel, and rotating representatives from work committees. It had laws, posted, updated, explained. It had an economy, barter days, labor credits, a basic system where if you contributed, you could earn small privileges that didn't threaten survival. Most importantly, it had identity. People stopped saying this place. They started saying home. That's dangerous in its own way, because once you call something home, you'll do terrible things to protect it. We tried to keep that from turning us into monsters. We focused on building, not hunting. We focused on stability, not revenge. And we kept one rule above the rest, written on the board in bold marker. The city exists to keep people alive, not to make someone feel powerful. The final test came in the form of fire. Not a dramatic fireball. Not a movie scene. A simple, stupid, human fire. A cooking station in a side building tipped a grease container. Flames caught a curtain. Smoke filled the room. People panicked. Smoke is a predator. It doesn't care about fences. The alarm system didn't work because the building's main panel was dead, so the only alarm was shouting. I smelled it before I saw it, burning fabric, then plastic. I sprinted toward the building, grabbed an extinguisher from a wall mount we'd installed weeks earlier, and kicked open the door. Inside was chaos. People coughing, stumbling, someone trying to carry a pot of water like it was the year 1800. I forced my way through, hit the flames with dry chemical, sweeping low like I'd been trained in a safety class nobody took seriously before the outbreak. The fire went down, but smoke lingered, thick and choking. Outside, Patel was already setting up a triage line. Sienna was checking airways. Ramirez had people forming a perimeter because commotion attracts the outside world. And outside did come. Not immediately, but within 20 minutes a scout on watch shouted, "Movement!" The smoke had drifted over the outer perimeter like a signal flare. A small wave approached. Maybe 20, maybe 30, drawn by scent and motion. We didn't have the luxury of exhaustion. We had to respond while people were still coughing from smoke. Ramirez handled security. Deshaun and Tom took positions with clear lanes of sight. They didn't fire. They used noise discipline, pushing the wave along barriers, redirecting them away from gates. Aisha and her construction team closed internal gates, compartmentalizing like Maribel designed. The wave pressed against Ring 1, then drifted, unable to find an easy path inside. The city held, not because we were tough, because we had structure. The fire incident also taught us another city truth. Disasters stack. You don't get one problem at a time. You get a problem during a problem. We wrote new rules that night. Cooking only in designated areas, fire watch during meals, no open flame near curtains or plastic barriers, extinguishers checked weekly. Boring rules, life-saving rules. I'm telling you all of this because when people imagine survivors, they imagine weapons and fights and lone wolves. That's not what saved us. What saved us was the unglamorous stuff. Water treatment, sanitation, shift rotations, inventory logs, fence reinforcement, quiet radios, committees, posted rules, and people willing to do boring jobs without applause. Yes, we had weapons. We had rifles and shotguns, mostly hunting and home defense types, and we learned quickly that firing them should be rare, controlled, and purposeful. Noise brings problems you can't outshoot. We used weapons like tools, not like identity. Our real weapons were planning and discipline. By the time winter came, we had insulation and heated zones, carefully heated, measured, controlled. We had food stores. We had a greenhouse-like setup using plastic sheeting and scavenged frames. We had a relationship with River Station and 2 other small groups who'd found their own strongholds, one near a farm outside Nazareth, another in a warehouse near Quakertown. Trade routes formed. Messenger teams formed. Shared radio frequencies formed. And something else formed too. Hope that didn't feel like a lie. One night, months after the first panic, I stood on an upper platform looking out over the dark industrial landscape. The furnaces were silhouettes against the sky. The Lehigh River moved like black glass. Below me, our core lights glowed dim behind covers. People walked along marked lanes, carrying water, checking gates, doing night shifts. Somewhere a kid laughed. Quietly, but it was real. Ramirez came up beside me, hands in his jacket pockets. "You ever think about what this place used to be?" he asked. "Steel," I said. He nodded. "And now?" I watched the guards at the inner gate do a shift change exactly on schedule. Radios clipped, no drama. I watched someone sweep a walkway like the world mattered. I watched a nurse carry a box of supplies into the clinic with steady hands. "Now it's people," I said. Ramirez exhaled. "We built a city." I didn't correct him. I didn't say it was fragile because he knew. I didn't say it could fall tomorrow because he lived with that knowledge every hour. Instead, I said the most accurate thing I could say. "We built a system," I told him, "and as long as we keep fixing it, it keeps us alive." Below us, the generator rumbled steadily, a mechanical heartbeat in the dark. That sound wasn't just power. It was proof. Proof that when the world ended, we didn't just hide. We built. And that's why I'm still here to tell you about it.